Namaskar, Anyong Hasanika. This is Sonu Trivedi, Director of the Swami Vivekanand Cultural Center at the Embassy of India in Seoul with you all today at this fourth session of the workshop, a truly masterclass on Facets of India-Republic of Korea Partnership, organized by Embassy of India under the dynamic leadership of our Ambassador Her Excellency Shri Priya Ranganathan in association with various Indian and Korean institutions. Starting from September 1st, we have discussed various themes covering Republic of Korea's New Southern Policy Plus and India's Act East policy in the Indo-Pacific region. Second theme was focused on overcoming the COVID pandemic, a business perspective. And yesterday, we discussed on the changing socio-economic landscape between India and Republic of Korea. Today, we are before you at this international forum to reflect upon how the renewable energy is empowering the future needs, what has been achieved so far, and how India and Republic of Korea can cooperate to make more viable renewable energy options available in the immediate future. To discuss these issues of critical importance, we have with us today some best and brightest minds from India and Republic of Korea today amidst us in this panel. To begin with, we have Mr. Upendra Tripathy, who is the founding Director General of International Solar Alliance and also former Secretary with Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India. We also have with us Professor Ousam Jin, who is professor at Gacheon University and also who was the former president of Korea Society of New and Renewable Energy. Mr. Kim Jun-dong, who was the former Deputy Minister for Energy Policy at Ministry of Trade and Industry, Republic of Korea. We have from India, Mr. Gyanesh Chaudhary joining us from Vikram Solar, who is the Managing Director and CEO of Vikram Solar, and Ms. Ji-Yoon Kim, who is the Assistant Director of International Affairs and Cooperation Division at Seamangum Development and International Agency. And to moderate the session, we have Dr. Ashwani Kumar, who is the former Managing Director of Solar Energy Corporation of India, and also who is currently Technical Advisor at Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation. We are also extremely privileged to have partnered with Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation from India for organizing this session. Friends, without much ado, let me call upon Dr. Ashwani Kumar to preside over the session and carry forward the deliberations for today. Dr. Ashwani Kumar, floor is all yours.
From me to all the experts, fellow panelists, and all the participants. This is my privilege to be amongst this August gathering of policymakers, experts, and to discuss that how India and Korea can make life better through this green energy revolution. As mentioned, this session 4 is related to renewable energy. The theme is powering the future. We all know that globally there has been a widespread concern that the temperature should be maintained, should be restricted to 1.5. A lot of action is there. The recent report by Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has also highlighted and emphasized the need of the hour. I would like to put some data for you that if we just see globally in 2020, as per IRENA report, total installations from solar PV has been 139 gigawatt, and from wind 93 gigawatt. The combined installations from RE were 256 gigawatt globally, and this is since 2012. This has been the 9th consecutive year that the total capacity additions in RE has been more than the fossil fuel based power capacity additions. In all, we have already reached 760 gigawatt of solar and In wind, we are somewhere 743 gigawatt. Third dimension of RE is the solar thermal heating. A lot of progress has been made in that also, and I think globally it is mentioned that that has also crossed over 500 gigawatt thermal. If we just have a look at what is going on during the last year globally, we find that there is a increased interest in electric vehicles, energy storage, even though it was a pandemic, but a sharp increase in the interest has been seen. Another statistics is that at least 9 countries are there which are generating more than 20% of their total electricity from solar and wind in 2020. Together, RE, renewable energy, and energy efficiency have made significant contributions to limiting the rise in carbon dioxide emissions. But we all know that still this is not sufficient. Time is running out. We all need to catch up fast, and our action have to be accelerated. In that view, when we have a look at the Korea, we find that there is a lot of similarity between Korea and India in terms of that our main base power is from coal or thermal power, and we both are importing a lot of coal or the fossil fuels. As far as concerned to the GDP, I think that's also we are about the same 2.5 trillion GDP. But the main fact, as I just mentioned, is that Korea has no domestic oil resources, and it has to import most of its coal and natural gas, as well as all of its oil. So as a result of that, Korea was the 5th largest oil importer in 2017 and 4th largest coal importer. If we just look at the per capita electricity consumption, though India is a large country with about 130 crores or so many people, so our per capita consumption is about, I would say, 1/10 of that of Korea's. Korea's economy is dominated by manufacturing, particularly electronic products, passenger vehicles, and petrochemicals. And it is heartening to see that we have very good presence of Korean companies in India. So with this perspective, if we have a look at India's progress on the renewable energy power, we crossed very recently 100 gigawatt milestone. The total installed capacity of RE in India is more than 100 gigawatt. And we have much more capacity, which is in the pipeline, is about to come. What I see is India has very good policy framework, which was set up in 2010 in terms of National Solar Mission. And Korea has very good technology base. So I think that makes a perfect case of synergy in the activities and cooperation possibilities. And I know that Korea is embarking on very ambitious program of technology advancement in solar photovoltaic. And already there is a talk of improving the efficiency of solar modules to 25% and even going beyond that. That augurs well for this sector. So with this comment, I would like to open the session for the panelists. I take this opportunity to invite Mr. Upendra Tripathy, as mentioned, who has been the former secretary. In fact, I have a personal connect with him. I have worked with him for a couple of years in the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India, and then at the Solar Energy Corporation of India, which is a public sector company of the government. So he is the Secretary to Government of India. He has made exceptional and outstanding contribution towards achieving 175 gigawatt target for 2022 and for ushering in policies that transform India's renewable energy sector between 2014 and 16. He was chairman of the board of Solar Energy Corporation of India, and all the technical institutions under ministry like National Institute of Solar Energy, National Institute of Wind Energy, National Institute of Bioenergy, and Association of Renewable Energy Agencies of States. We all know that he is the founder, Director General, International Solar Alliance. He galvanized the RE sector in India through his stellar guidance. Earlier, he has been a successful administrator, and he is what we say in India from Karnataka cadre. He has been responsible for turnaround of number of companies there. He has received many awards. One which I would like to mention here, that he was bestowed with Prime Minister's Award for Excellence in Public Administration in 2009. So I invite Mr. Upendra Tripathy for your speech.
Thank you, Ashwini. It is a pleasure to be with you all. And at the outset, I'll express my gratitude to Her Excellency, the Ambassador of India in Korea, for having invited me. I'm very thankful to the colleagues from Korea, the friends from Korea who are today, Mr. Kim, who are all present here. In this whole 7-day series, which is unique, I mean, not very many embassies do put such programs in view. It's a difficult thing, but it brings into focus several aspects of our cultural, social, scientific themes into practice. So I congratulate the embassy for having, arranged this, organized this, and bringing so many sectors together and countries together. Today, of course, we are focused on renewable energy, which is the focus of the whole globe today. I usually start with either something to show or something of an anecdote. And today I will show this watch. This is a solar watch. It looks very sophisticated, but it runs without a battery. All that it needs is 8 minutes exposure to sunlight or room light. Any photon is enough for this. Now, why do I start with a demonstration of a wristwatch? That is to highlight that solar has reached the level of wristwatches. And I remember I went to a toy store in Peru, in Lima, and the whole toy store was full of solar electronics, toy electronics. And there was a statue of Einstein, thumping his head and having a solar panel at the feet. There was Thomas Edison with a bulb that lights up with solar, and the solar was again, somewhere at the back. Now, and you must have also heard that solar has not only reached the wristwatches and electronic toys, but we have heard about agro-photovoltaics, how farming and photovoltaics can be combined, making it, more income for the, ensuring more income for the farmer, and making it reach grassroots level where we actually need electricity in the farming setup in the agricultural villages. And the point is not only that solar is spreading horizontally from sector to sector, but also vertically, from country to country to various levels. And it was such a pleasure to know that that unique building called the headquarters of the United Nations, having at the rooftop a small solar, of 80 kilowatt. Of course, we are very, proud that India financed the whole project. But it is symbolic that the United Nations of the world has a rooftop solar at its top. The point that I'm far and wide, and but still, we remember that famous to go before we sleep, because 5 degrees global mean temperature, and to keep that temperature below that 1.5 degrees is a Herculean task. And I don't think we have been very successful so far. Unlike Montreal Protocol, which succeeded tremendously, somehow we have been slow, but I'm an optimist both with what mankind does and what technology does, and I'm sure we are going to meet the challenges that the crisis has offered. And to start with, in 2019, I was in Korea, and I met many friends, and thanks to the embassy, I had visited a small plant close by to the capital, where it used to do something called managerial innovation. Now, managerial innovation meant not that they had changed from photovoltaic or silicon, that they had gone beyond silicon, but within the silicon panels, they had changed the structure of the rectangles that hold the panels. And this way, they had enhanced the efficiency by some 8%. Because, when there are panels, with this type of managerial management or improvement or innovation, we are still able to increase the overall efficiency. Efficiencies are going up, and that is where that technology comes in. So today is the theme about Indo-Korean friendship and cooperation, and what we can do for renewable energy. Now, what we can do for renewable energy together is there in the poem called Lamp of the East. This is the poem that Rabindranath Tagore, the Nobel laureate from India, who wrote in 1929. And in that poem, The Lamp of the East, he talks about Korea's glorious past and its promise and the bright future that awaits Korea. And it is not only the companies that Ashwini mentioned, Samsung, Hyundai, Elgair, or even the Indian companies who are there, Hindalco, Mahindra, Tata Motors, but the future that India and Korea can hold together to promote renewable energy, to meet the obligations under the Paris Agreement, to bring in the Kigali Amendment into force together all over the world. Now, there are the famous paradigm of land, labor, capital things. Land, of course, will be country specific. And in the absence of land today, wherever there is a problem in getting land, for example, countries, the coastal belt of India, or to that matter, even countries like Bangladesh, they are going for renewable. They are going out of the land to water. In International Solar Alliance, we had a prize for the best country, which promoted floating solar. And this prize was instituted by the government of Karnataka. And I'm so happy to say Japan got the first prize for the Asia Pacific region. So water, the hydro solar, floating solar is emerging as an alternative to lack of land. But where India and Korea can work together is the need for capital. If you look at the total need for capital is much more, and hardly 3 to 5% comes from the public sector, like World Bank, Asian Development Bank. A large chunk of money in the capital that meet the Paris Agreement commitments. That is where Korea and India can play a big role in the sense not only persuading the money holders to release money for the renewable energy sector, but also to make sure that there is equity and justice in the place where the capital reaches. We have a large number of island nations, and they actually, I remember the Honorable Minister from Fiji who told that, look, for you, renewable energy is a matter of webinars, seminars, workshops, for writing books. But for us, it's a matter of life and death. Every morning we get up and we see a bit of island having gone down the sea. And that is the meaning of global warming for us. And that is where India and Republic of Korea have a lot of commitment to make sure that in the capital front, the countries who need most must flow, and the public sector must commit more amount, because even if the 48 billion of bilateral official assistance is not adequate, and the $100 billion promised by the developed countries has not yet materialized in the sense the developing world expects. So a lot of new, in fact, in International Solar Alliance, we proposed a World Solar Bank dedicated to the countries who need the money most, and dedicated to the sectors where we need most investment. So this is the second area where India and Korea can work a lot together. And third thing is, of course, the technology. Silicon has limitations, and lithium has limitations, and storage has challenges. And these are the challenges both the countries should work together, combining their R&D capacity and capability, and the utility that we derive from the common R&D. And that is we call the economic vibrancy. This is an area we have, but then we can do a lot more in that sector. And it is not only land, labor, capital, the training front also. Both countries can come together and make sure that the type of talents, the type of workforce that we need to spread renewables, both in terms of wind and hydro and water, and the type of technological exchanges and improvements that we need. And when John Kerry said that 50% of the CO2 reduction that we need are lying in the lap of the labs, the technologies that have not yet come out of the labs. And that is where Korea and India can work together to get the technologies out of the lab into the market, and to create an ecosystem where the technologies can move quickly to the market and can be commercialized and can be utilized and can improve access from different countries. And in this in this model that I'm suggesting, that we have to cooperate and collaborate in areas of land, labor, capital, and technology. But as it is said that the time is running out. We are in the middle of an inferno, and we are in the middle of a fire, and we are firefighting. There won't be much time left if we really don't act very fast. And that is also a common statement. It has been told by so many people in so many forums that people are no more listening to that statement that we are running out of time. But come what may, in these new things, India and Korea have to ensure three things: that the entire world has speed in promoting renewable energy, because these electrons are different electrons. They have a social message, they have a climate message, and they're essential. And in these factors, we have to ensure speed, because if you today think of those three poles, Arctic, Antarctica, and the Himalayas, we find the interlinkages are so vital. The interlinkages with the weather systems, climate systems, with the oceanic currents, they're all a very complex interlinkages that we have between the three poles and the oceanic streams. There is a lot of research going on, but speed is very essential here. How fast we actually check the further decline in the environmental health and wealth of these three areas. And apart from speed, we need the scale. And scale is critical, because it is not only 2-3 countries get involved more. It has to be all the countries who came to Paris, all the countries who gave their commitment. The world now has to create an enabling system where the countries can deliver, and deliver it fast. And that is where speed, skill, and scale come in. So the scale must be much more than what it is currently there. It is not only deploying wind and solar and taking new innovations, but it is making a 24/7 control room for the globe. And when we say 24/7 control room in the globe, it means that we monitor now on a basis of seconds and minutes and hours as to what is being done. And unless we do that, it is not a response which is adequate and appropriate to the current challenge we have. So essentially, I told that speed, skill, and scale will be very critical. And we have to address issues of land, labor, capital, and technology. In this, finance and technology are very important. And in this area, traditionally, Korea and India have done wonderfully well, but both can be more focused and play a role which will actually implement the dreams that we dreamt in Paris under the Paris Agreement. Give a time limit, a time schedule where ties. But because I remember when that 100 gigawatt solar we brought in, and I was new, and so was Prime Minister Modi in the first term. But today, as on August 21, the share of renewable energy, excluding large hydro, in the total installed capacity is already over 26% in India. And trends suggest that the share of renewable energy, excluding large hydro, in total installed capacity will be around 37% by 2022 and 54% by 2030. And this I am, taking from the 175 capacity gigawatt promise that India made by 2022 December. But that isn't enough. If you look at India again, that they have brought in 430 gigawatt, and that is crucial. The commitment, the leadership that has been given in India is big. And this, 450 gigawatt, and India's target of 450 gigawatt renewable power installed capacity by the year 2030 translates into around 35 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity per year. And in this, the grid ratio, if you look at the investment, which should be 1:1, that you invest $1 in generating power, $1 you should invest in grid distribution systems. And this ratio has not been very common in countries. So we need more capital, not only for generating renewable energy, but also look at the distribution systems, grid integration, new types of storage. So keeping all these things in view, I once again congratulate the embassy for having put this important theme together and over a long period. And today's dedication of this session to renewable energy and how Korea and India can work together to promote global good is a brilliant thing. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir, for your inspiring words and already showing some direction that where this cooperation can take place. So thanks a lot. We'll come back again with the questions. But now I think I would like to invite Mr. Kim Jun-dong. He is the former Deputy Minister for Energy Policy, Ministry of Trade and Industry, Republic of Korea. He is a senior advisor at Shin and Kim presently. Prior to joining the firm, and for 30 years, Mr. Kim served in various high-ranking positions within the Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Energy. In particular, Mr. Kim led industrial policy-making efforts for a number of sectors, including automotive, shipbuilding, machinery, and biohealth, among others. With respect to the energy sector, Mr. Kim's experience and expertise ranges from electric power, nuclear energy, to renewable energy and overseas resource development. Further, as Deputy Minister of Energy and Resource, he established the second master plan for national energy and the sixth basic plan on electricity demand and supply. Mr. Kim also held various key positions within the Korean government, including serving as the Deputy Secretary to the President, a spokesperson for MOTIE, and as the Senior Policy Coordinator for the National Assembly of Korea. From 2015 to 17, Mr. Kim served as the Secretary General of the National Research Foundation. Before joining Shin and Kim, Mr. Kim served as the Executive Vice Chairman of the Korean Chamber of Commerce and Industry. which is the largest and oldest business organization in South Korea, composed of 73 regional chambers representing approximately 2 lakh member companies. With that, Mr. Kim, over to you. It's all yours.
예, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. I think I'm allowed not much time here, so I will keep it short. But let me start with thanking Her Excellency the Ambassador. I had many chances to meet with her. I want to thank her again for this wonderful occasion. So what I have prepared here is to cover the MOTIE government's renewable energy policy and the global policies, and how Korea's policy is doing. And I wanted to cover some companies related to renewable energies in Korea. So let me start here. So globally speaking, there are more and more demand for cleaner energy. So the income is going high, and we're experiencing more needs related to climate change these days. Many global IT companies are entering these fields like Google, and we have a CDP board where BMW, Google, and many companies are entering these fields. They know about these flows, and we're talking about ESG investment as well in the market. So the importance of these renewable energies is going higher and higher. So this is the current situation right now. So I've heard from Dr. Kumar and Mr. Upendra, Tripathy. So the MOTIE government has been very timely to address these issues. In 2022, I heard this from Mr. Tripathy, the 175 gigawatts goal, and he was very sure that India will reach these goals, but the 450 gigawatt goal is very ambitious and make this 40% renewable energy goal. So again, it was very timely for the MOTIE government to set these goals and has been very ambitious. And I know that the MOTIE government is now taking the right steps. So as far as I know, India is the world's 4th largest energy country, and is the 5th largest country in renewable energies as well. So India is the 4th for wind power and 5th for solar power, as far as I know. And I know that Mr. Tripathy has done many things when he was the Secretary of Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. I know that he did a lot of things. And recently, modernizing the infrastructure. And as a Korean entrepreneur, that means a lot for me as well. So there's been many consultant groups. So we think that India comes the 3rd most important country in the world. So from a Korean entrepreneur point of view, as well as a global point of view, I foresee that there will be many investments to India in the future. So let me now talk about the Korean energy policy. Korea is very special in the world. So we talk Korea is an energy island. So when we think about the European countries, they import energy from other countries, but Korea just cannot. So Korea is an energy island. And Korea has the largest manufacturing field compared to other OECD countries. So the need for energy is growing further and further. So Korea's GDP is raising also, And the need for electricity is also growing as well. So that is Korea's current situation. Like Dr. Kumar has said, India and Korea are very similar when it comes to coal and some conventional energy mix. So Korea has also a 70% energy mix of coal, and about 30% is from nuclear. So Korea has a very good quality electricity. And the price of energy in Korea is among the cheapest in OECD. Germany has a lot of renewable energy sources, but compared to Korea, residential electricity is 4 times higher price than Korea. So Korea has the most high quality energy at a cheapest price in globally. But still, Korea has a high coal energy mix. So Korea has a lot of barrier to overcome when it comes to the climate change. So Korea has a lot of challenges when it comes to these issues as well. So the new government, the Moon Jae-in government, is setting a lot of focus in these renewable energies as well, and is doing a lot of effort. So we're now focusing on coal phase out and nuclear phase out as well. So nuclear phase out has a lot of issues, but we will have a presidential election next year. So we're still doing a lot of effort related on these issues. But still, renewable energies are closely related to future climate changes and other issues as well. So that is a kind of issue that we're focusing as well. So in 2017, when Moon government started, we came up with an energy 30-20 implementation plan, which means that 20% of power generation will be from renewable sources by 2030. In 2017, it was 7.6%. And we came up with a third National Energy Master Plan, where we would target 40% of renewable energy by 2040. In December last year, we came up with a 2050 carbon neutral net zero strategy. So we will come up with offshore wind power and other auxiliary power sources as well. And we focus renewable energies, hydrogen energies, and energy IT. We foster these as 3 new energy industries, and we will also strengthen international cooperation as well. So these are Korea's focus right now, and I want to stress on this, strengthening international cooperation. And August this year, the National Assembly passed the Carbon Neutrality Framework Act. So the act is the strongest of them all. So we had this NDC that we announced to UN, the 2030 NDC. We raised the goal from 26.3% to 35%. So we're focusing now, by 2030, Korea will have this 35% NDC. So many companies in the manufacturing field has a lot of concerns for that as well. So that was Korea. So things are quite complex in the Korean field, and we will have many future challenges like steel and petroleum as well. So we have to work on these issues in the future. We have to renew the energy industry as well. So these are all the challenges that Korea is facing. So let me focus on the companies from both countries, because we have to focus on these companies that have the strength. So we have the CEO from Vikram as well. India is very strong on wind and also solar panels as well. We have Vikram Solar, Tata Power Solar, and very strong companies there. Korea also, when it comes to solar, we have all the value chains related to solar and also wind farms as well. We have companies related to blade, tower, and offshore solar as well. We have strong companies that can work globally as well. So we are fostering these companies, public-private supports. We have these supports for these companies. So I want to mention that Korea have these technologies as well. So in the future, how the two companies can collaborate. So we have SEPA between the two countries. So we have this highest level of economic collaboration between the two countries. That is a framework. So I recently heard from the Korean government. They say that at the SEPA level, when it comes to trade, the India has a high level trade deficit compared to Korea. There are many issues that we have at SEPA level, but when it comes to SEPA, the renewable energy is not discussed that much because we had the third SEPA round in 2016. Korea asked India to have this renewable energy board, but because that board has been not on the top tier list currently. So given this situation, so India focuses on EU, have more, India knows that EU and Japan has some success stories, and we know that from many think tanks. So when we think about EU and Japan, they conducted many multi-level talks between countries, between companies. They had multi-level talks with all facets of collaboration. So that's what EU and Japan's enterprises and companies did. They had multilateral talks, and JICA and other investment institutions in Japan conducted these multi-level talks, and they are doing quite well these days. And when it comes to Korea and India collaboration, we lack some company-to-company level talks and company-to-company level investment as well. So we have to have these kinds of seminars. But what I want to conclude is that more than a government-to-government level collaboration, when it comes to renewable energy, we have to have these working level talks, private level talks, and institution level talks. So we have to have these multi-level talks as well. So as you're well aware, I've worked on the Korea Chamber of Commerce, but maybe we have to have these chamber-to-chamber level talks as well to discuss these renewable energies. So maybe solar-to-solar company level as well. That is what we need to have. Maybe wind-to-wind institutions as well. We have to have these channels, company-to-company level channels as well. And also all kinds of seminar will help. I know that in India you have a Renewable Energy Expo every year, so maybe we can use that as an opportunity to do future collaborations. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
So thank you for your talk and suggestions. We'll come back to you. The next, I would like to invite Professor Ousam Jin. Yeah, he is a professor at Gacheon University and former President Korea Society of New and Renewable Energy. He is a professor and honorary president of the Korean Society for New and Renewable Energy and chairman of the Green Energy Strategy Institute, and leads RE100 initiative in Korea as the president of Korea RE100 committee. He has led the academic and social drive for the transition to renewable energy, bringing together scholars, researchers, and industry experts on renewable energy and climate change, and established Renewable Energy Day. He also has experience in developing various renewable energy projects such as solar, wind, biomass, and biogas power plants, and in participating in policy development such as FIT and RPS system. So over to Professor Jin.
안녕하십니까.
Good afternoon. My name is Ousam Jin, professor at Gacheon University. I would like to thank Dr. Kumar for that wonderful and very warm introduction. Before I make my presentation, I want to say that we don't have much time left, but Korea and India should work together so that we could make most of these opportunities. And I would like to thank Her Excellency, the Indian Ambassador to Korea, for giving us this precious opportunity to talk about issues that we need to deal with before time is up. That is the time for our planet. And it's a personal honor to be able to give this talk among the prominent experts in the renewable energy. Today, I want to talk about this journey to renewable energy. And in that journey, what are the tasks that we have? What are the obstacles we have? And then I will also talk about what can India and Korea do in partnership, in collaboration. And I will talk about these things from academic as well as technical points of view. Mr. Kim Jun-dong has talked about the Korean government policies in regards to renewable energy. And I also want to add a few things related to Korean policies in regards to renewable energy. I want to talk about the carbon policy of Korea, Korea's renewable energy policy. Well, Korean carbon policy saw a very important announcement last year. So Korea's NDC for 2030 was revised before it was submitted to the United Nations. Why is this fact important? Well, the NDC that we had submitted to the UN previously was a BAU basis, so it was quite arbitrary. However, the new NDC that we provided last year is based on absolute numbers, absolute criteria. So what does that mean? That means the Korean government has a very, very strong commitment and will to achieve the goals related to NDCs. And then last year, actually of December of last year, the Korean government has declared carbon neutrality by 2050. And in order to respond to new global paradigm, as well as to climate changes, Korean government has established this declaration, and this came as a shock to many people here in Korea, even to some public. And then this August, well, we have come up with this scenario to achieve carbon neutrality. Actually, there were three scenarios that had been announced. So it's more like a roadmap or a vision to reach carbon neutrality by 2030. So why am I talking to you, about these things and saying that these are some sort of progress? because by 2030, we want renewable energy to be to account for 20% of the total energy. Well, there are some unclearness when it comes to renewable energy. So we talk about it's a bit of a confusion when it comes to new energy and renewable energy, and so about the renewable energy is globally about 6.6%. But anyway, Korean government wants to have renewable energy account for like a 20% of the total energy here in Korea. So that's the background here in Korea. Now, I want to talk about what we need to do in order to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. The Korean government has renewable energy targets. Where Korea has a phased emissions reduction plan and an increase of renewable energy and reach carbon neutrality by 2050. The Korean government plan of reaching 20% by 2030 will not be enough, to reach carbon neutrality. And so in order for us to reach neutrality by 2050, our target has to be twice as high, not 20%, but 40%. I think it was about a month ago that Japan announced its own target, and its Japanese target was over, from what I understand, about 35%. So our target has to be around 40%. And also about distribution. Right now, Korea, the renewable energy market price. Because I'm involved in RE100 initiatives, I know that Korean companies are having difficulties accessing renewable energy. So that's an issue. Why are these companies having these issues? Because one is because not enough supply, and the second issue is the high price. So these two problems have to be solved in advance, so therefore that we can have carbon neutrality by 2050. In order to have more distribution renewable energy, well, we have to deal with the issues of the electricity grids and also social acceptance of renewable energy. And the last task or the last problem that we need to deal with is technology. And for technology development, is it related to the production of facility as well as generation efficiency. And to go 100% renewable energy, there has to be electrification, digitalization, as well as decentralization. And so for this end, we do need to develop technologies. And in order to ensure flexibility of renewable energy, we need to have power to hydrogen, power to battery, and power to heat. So we need to have a coupling of different sectors, and we need to develop technologies to enable that sector coupling. And I think Korea and India could work together in order to develop these technologies. And lastly, I would like to briefly talk about potential areas of cooperation between Korea and India. And in order to cooperate, for both countries, both countries need to be able to know what each country has in terms of renewable technologies. And so maybe academic and technological workshops or forums could help to enhance, that sort of understanding. In our society, that is the Korean Society for New and Renewable Energy, we are going to be holding 10th Asia Pacific Forum on renewable energy from the 1st to 3rd of November this year. And if it's possible, I could set up a special session, Korea-India special session, where we could introduce each other's latest technology related to renewable energy. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Professor Ousam Jin. I'm sorry that I had to, curtail a little bit time, and definitely but I think your intervention is very, very important, and we have already touched upon the issue of, storage, hydrogen, and heating. That's really very important. We look forward for your support. Now, I think the next speaker I would like to invite is Mr. Gyanesh Chaudhary, who is the Managing Director, Vikram Solar. Mr. Gyanesh, in fact, has successfully led Vikram Solar, which has become a world-renowned PV module manufacturing and EPC solutions provider. His entrepreneurial spirit has also given shape to VSL Ventures and MNRE Labs, two key functionaries set up under the Vikram banner, which deals in futuristic business aids such as artificial intelligence and machine learning. Vikram Solar has recently claimed 32nd spot on coveted Fortune India's next 500 list, mirroring customer satisfaction and contribution to global sustainable energy mission. Mr. Chaudhary has completed executive education from business transformation and strategy from Harvard Business School. He is a business graduate from the University of Wales, UK, holds a diploma in marketing and international trade from the University of Boston and international business from Harvard Business School, USA. He has received several awards and accolades for his contribution to the green energy transition. Export Excellence Awards by FIEO from late Shri Pranab Mukherjee, former President of India. A Star Performer Award by CBIP on Best Contribution in Solar Energy from late Shri APJ Abdul Kalam, former President of India, and ET Bengal Corporate Awards from Shri R.K. Singh, Honorable Cabinet Minister. So over to Gyanesh ji.
A very good afternoon to all the dignitaries and industry veterans. It is my privilege to be a part of such an engaging discussion which can bring transformative change between India and South Korea. A little bit about India and the solar revolution in India. The solar energy took central place in the Indian National Action Plan on Climate Change with National Solar Mission, which was launched on 11th January 2010. It was close to 15 megawatt of installed solar capacity in 2010. Government of India has always been supportive of strengthening the domestic solar manufacturing sector, as an evidence of various solar policy interventions such as safeguard duty, PLI scheme, and basic custom duty. India's annual renewable energy capacity addition has been exceeding that of coal-based thermal power since 2017. India has embarked on the world's largest RE expansion plan of 450 gigawatt by 2030, as mentioned by Dr. Tripathy. Currently, India has more than 42 gigawatt of installed solar capacity in 2021 under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. The opportunities in India are immense. The National Institute of Solar Energy has assessed India's solar potential at about 748 gigawatt, assuming 3% of wasteland to be covered by solar PV modules. Additionally, we firmly believe the pandemic has been a huge opportunity for India to shape an inclusive and sustainable economy. The world is looking at India to diversify its trade and market supply chain. India has resources, technology, leadership, skill to become a global manufacturing hub for renewable energy sector. Solar can save $30 to $35 billion of forex reserves with an investment of $5 to $6 billion only. in solar manufacturing. Solar manufacturing can help save $42 billion by 2030 from solar imports. Solar can save fossil fuel imports, which was $102 billion in FY 19-20. Global solar demand is expected to climb at 34% by the end of 21, which is a whopping percentage. India's share in global energy demand is also expected to increase by 11% by 2030-2035. Initiatives like Make in India, the drafting of the National Electronics Policy, Export Incentive, Phased Manufacturing Plan, the SPECS scheme, the PLI scheme, the new industrial policy, and the current regime has also introduced FDI inflows within the country, creating an environment for transformation of the manufacturing sector. The International Solar Alliance, established by our Honorable Prime Minister and the President of France, François Hollande, in November 2015, has put forth India's leadership in the accent of clean energy transition across the globe. We are confident with the certain policy and focus on the manufacturing sector, India can become a global manufacturing hub for end technology. Now a little bit about our esteemed dignitaries from Korea and how we can work together. South Korea is one of the most developed countries in Asia, with the 8th largest electricity consumer in the world. It has been making strong efforts to increase renewable energy portion in its energy mix. The country is backed with strong manufacturing industry as well as supportive policies. Besides, South Korea has revised its nuclear policy to cut reliance on nuclear power, and that would help the cause of PV adoption in manifold. Although solar growth has been moderate or slow before, the country emerged as an unexpected bright spot for the growth in the past 3 years, adding almost 4.1 gigawatts only in 2020. Considering Korea happens to have the highest dependence on fossil fuel among the largest industrial economies, it is fortunate that we have announced and in October 2020, its goal to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, like Mr. Jin was mentioning. To achieve this target, 30.8 gigawatt of solar should be done by 2030, which is well within reach, considering South Korea already is sitting at about 15 gigawatt of installed capacity. In 2018, fossil fuel accounted for 85% of the total primary energy supply, a strong dependence on energy imports at 84%, and the dominance of industrial energy use at 55% of the total consumption, the highest share amongst IEA countries. There is an immediate and aggressive need for investment and adoption of green energy, turning around this energy mix scenario. With the Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Energy, planning tenders for 4 gigawatt capacity through two tenders, coupled with ambitious floating solar projects that include additional 2.1 gigawatt park over solar installations are expected to increase further. In 2020, large PV plants of over 1 megawatt were built in the country for the first time. South Korea's solar power market is growing at a CAGR of 10.6% from 2014 to 2020, which is very significant. Falling costs, government policies, private partnerships, downstream innovation and expansions, and various incentive schemes from the use of renewable energy for power generation are driving the solar power market in an exponential rate. On the other hand, high initial investment, intermittent energy source, and requirement of large installation areas to set up solar farms are restraining the market from growth. Although a lot of research is going on in this field to make production easier, cheaper, and also to make solar panels smaller, more customer friendly, lots of effort are being put to increase efficiency of solar panels, which used to have a very single-digit efficiency in the past. Different techniques like nanocrystalline solar cells, thin film processing, metamorphic multi-junction solar cells, polymer processing, and many more will help in future technologies. South Korea and India both need to come together to identify and understand priorities plan a path towards growth and mutual collaboration. Thank you all, and my best wishes for a successful academic workshop.
Thanks a lot, Gyanesh, for helping us for maintaining the time as well. This is really important, and I think I would like to make one request at this point of time, that as we are little lagging in the schedule, so we would require to extend the duration of the session by another 15 minutes. So the speakers are requested to make themselves available during the extended period of the session. And now I would like to invite Ms. Ji Yuan Kim, and she is the Assistant Director, International Affairs and Cooperation Division, Seamangum Development and Investment Agency. She has been involved in Seamangum Renewable-Energy project by contributing to the establishment of the basic plan to the marketing the project. She made several presentations on this project in international conferences and recently promoted RE100 industrial complex in RE100 members meeting organized by the Climate Group. Ms. Kim worked as a researcher at Korea Development Institute and other research centers for 4 years. She holds BA in History and Political Science and MA in International Economics at Yonsei University, South Korea. She also completed 3 semesters in International Economics MA program at Brandeis University, USA. Over to Ms. Kim.
It's nice to have you all here, and I'm very honored to share my Seamangum story today. Now I'd like to share my slides. Let's see. So I'll just go over briefly the Seamangum, where Seamangum is. Seamangum is in the center of West Coast and is about 2 hours drive from Seoul. Seamangum is a large project, about $20 billion project, and we are world's longest seawall in the world. In Seamangum, we have 3 core projects. The first project is green energy production and implementation of empirical research. And other project, we have a future industry cluster, and third is zero carbon smart city. In Seamangum, we want to create an energy hub and zero carbon new industry stronghold in Seamangum. Now, I'd like to share Seamangum's green energy production generation project. Currently, we are planning to have 7 gigawatt of renewable energy projects in near Seamangum and in Seamangum. For solar power, we have 2.1 gigawatt floating solar project and 300 megawatt of land solar project, as well as we are planning to have 4 gigawatt of offshore wind power, and also 100 megawatt of fuel cell. And it's one of the world's largest scale renewable energy project. And I think energy-based new industries can be developed in Seamangum. In order to make this project successful, we are implementing transmission system for rapid business implementation, and generator will settle in proportion to the scale of development in later. And also, I want to introduce our project by business plan by type. The power generation project led by Seamangum Development Corporation is 200 megawatt, and grid connected type power generation business 300 megawatt solar farm. And internal development and investment driven power generation business is 1.4 gigawatt, and projects led by local government will be 500 megawatt. And wind power generation business for just in Seamangum is 100 megawatt, and fuel cell will be 100 megawatt. About the wind power solar energy, we already come in, it's near West South Sea, about a little bit south of Seamangum, and there completed 60 megawatt demonstration farm by last 2 years ago, and now currently in progress of 2.4 gigawatt offshore wind power project. Is $40 billion investment, and project implementers Korea offshore wind power, KEPCO, and private electricity generation companies. The progress highlights this in 2 points. First, we have power plants. The large-scale 3 gigawatt plus 4 gigawatt renewable energy project in Seamangum was launched upon the announcement of renewable energy vision in 2018. Power generation at plants will phase in starting from 2022. And in terms of cluster, power generation business will accelerate investment attraction, site construction, and establishment of relevant research facilities, building a foundation for the renewable energy cluster. So in Seamangum, our agency wants to create a Silicon Valley for renewable energy industry. In order to create Silicon Valley for renewable energy industry, we have 2 areas to attract. First is manufacturing companies, and second is research institute. We have so far attracted numerous solar power companies, like a company who builds buoyant materials, metal structure, and inverter and solar modules. And also in terms of research institute, we have attracted comprehensive floating solar power generation evaluation center and offshore wind power industry support center in our industrial complex. And our industrial complex is designated as Energy Industry Convergence Complex. How do we make this renewable energy complex successful? There should be excellent port system nearby, and we have good connectivity between port and industrial complex. So that makes our Seamangum Renewable Energy Complex successful. And also, since we have a large scale renewable energy generation projects going on, that makes people to understand that we are the hub of renewable energy. Some say that it's a little bit difficult to create renewable energy cluster because even if with the local content requirements, not many companies build their factories in industrial complex, but we are overcoming that factor by attracting a lot of our R&D funds to our research and industrial complex, like Savoie in France, which has a National Solar Energy Institute, like Savoie in Technoplat. So we are exemplifying this French case as well. So I like to thank you for sharing my story to you, and I hope to get a lot of insights from you, all of you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Ji-Yeon Kim, for completing your speech in the time. So thanks a lot. In fact, I am thankful to all these speakers for presenting their views on India-Korea cooperation, how we can take it forward. Maybe we can further deliberate on these issues going, some, I would say, specific questions. Keeping in mind the urgency or time schedule of availability of Upendra Tripathi sir, I would like to take, with the permission of all other panelists, questions to him. Sir, we all are aware that all countries are working aggressively to achieve NDCs, which is heart of Paris Accord. What is we know the status of achievement in India, elsewhere, but I would like to request your opinion that how or what strategy can be adopted to keep going and maintain the momentum and ultimately reaching net zero carbon goals by the countries. Over to Tripathy, sir.
I'm not sure if every country is trying very hard, but 2-3 things are very critical if we would like to stick to the deadline that nature has set for us. If you look at today, the entire narrative of the globe is on CO2. We are talking about CO2, as the main cause. But if you look at the statistics, CO2 is responsible for around 55% of the global warming. Now, 45% is with the other villains. You can call CO2 as villain number 1, but then there is a villain number 2, which is methane. Then villain number 3, maybe the CFCs or SCFCs or NOx, SOx. So the non-carbon component needs to be highlighted, and the world has to make some midterm correction or mid-course correction to shift the focus and emphasis, not shift actually, to engage with CO2, but at the same time, the non-CO2 component has to come in. And number 2 is the finance. We have to have the global strategy to quantify the capital required and find ways to mobilize this capital in a collective way. It is not enough that World Bank brings a few projects and other multilateral banks puts a few projects, or the Green Climate Fund puts a few $1 billion. It has to be much more inclusive, in terms of mobilizing domestic capital, budget provisions. It has to involve private stakeholders in the equity and loan market. So we need a global cap, like it told. The first point is, of course, non-CO2 strategy, and second point, we have to have a collective financial strategy. In Paris, when the One Climate Summit was there, major banks made statements that they're going to realign their loaning or loan provisions to suit to climate change. But over 1.5 years, it is still to be evaluated as to how effective it has been, and to what extent the necessity is met. And number 3 is, and that is the point you suggested, what has to be done. The 2, of course, I told, is the focus on non-CO2 without diluting our focus on CO2. And second is the global capital strategy. And number 3, a technology platform. It's very easy. If you look at technology to reduce methane, if you are talking about technology to reduce NOx or SOx, or even technologies to implement Kigali Amendment, now there is a big vacuum between what countries need and what is actually available in the market, and that this is affordable. So precisely, I would say that it's not merely the Paris Agreement was a big success that everybody signed, but its implementation has to be driven by 3-4 key areas where there has to be total focus. And those 3 focus areas I will suggest is A, the non-CO2 component, and necessary actions. I refer to the 3 poles. And number 2, a global financial strategy, which is essential. And number 3, a technology strategy, which would bring out what John Kerry said, that 50% of the technologies are inside the lab.
Thanks a lot, sir. What I understand, I just take a second, that when you say non-CO2, that would mean probably one is the Kigali Agreement amendment. It means we are addressing the cooling sector. Other is fuels, basically non-electricity application fuel, because that is not coming in the strategy probably. So this is what probably you are hinting at. So that's
well, what I hinted at, you are talking about the methane hydrates in the ocean. If the temperature goes up to a point, then you will have leakage of methane, and methane is 1,000 times more harmful than CO2.
Yeah,
and now, if you go and reach to that same reaction where the methane hydrates in the subsea, in the sea floor, can get into the atmosphere, it can never be stopped. Now, we should not go to that critical point. We should control temperature, and to control temperature, these short-lived climate pollutants, SLCPs, play a very critical role. So what I have in mind is, of course, methane, NOx, SOx. We have, CFCs. Yes, these are the main things.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I would like to have your feedback on another issue. All the countries are making whatever efforts, some in great intensity, that solar and wind installations are going up. But now with the increasing intensity of the capacity into the grid integration issues and grid balancing, the need of battery storage, these kind of things have started emerging up. If we just look at what we have done, battery storage at decentralized level is fairly established and people can do it, and it can be afforded. But at utility scale, grid level, still there is a gap. What vision we can have on this?
Well, the latest thing is 24/7. The burden is shifting to the industry, saying that, and what are the ways you can actually ensure 24/7? A is, of course, you combine wind and sun. And second, you can combine light and heat. And third is, of course, you can go for, lithium-based storage systems or any other storage system. There are several of them. But the challenge is that you have to have a mix of all. If, like in places like countries where you can combine heat and light, that itself will be a great thing, because you use heat to make steam, use the steam to move the turbine and produce energy 24/7, and mix it with solar daytime and the wind, day and night. So you have to have not only 24/7 lithium-based storage systems, but we have to have, because of financial reasons, we have to reduce the dependence on lithium storage. And that we have to find out, even pumped storage that we talk about. In many countries, pumped storage can be based, and if you have a pricing system of peak and non-peak hours, this is a commercially viable thing. India itself has 7,000 kilometers of coastline, some 49-50 towns and cities. They have 100-meter high hills and hillocks from where, water can be made to flow or rise during the daytime and flow during the evening hours when there is a peak hour. So the point in brief is that you have to minimize the cost of storage. That is point number one, and that you can do through a variety of ways. And the second one is that most countries have to keep in mind that, distribution of power in the AC system that we have is as important as the generation. And the ratio broadly is 1:1. If you spend $1 here, you spend $1 there in improving the distribution system. But in India, I think the ratio is 1:0.6, something like that. And world over, it is not there, because most countries don't have that much of capital or affordable capital to go for it. And that again takes me back to the question of, technology, smart grids, smart, metering, smart centers. A lot of technology finance issues have to be addressed when you're talking about reducing the cost of storage and the grid integration to be made financially cheaper.
Thanks a lot, sir. I was thinking that probably you will talk about regional grids as well, one sun, one world, one grid. That's also one way that you can share the electricity from different times. And another, sir, I think thermal storage also has some application areas. So
that is a very good point you have raised. In fact, one sun, one world, one grid, which the Solar Alliance started, and now they have appointed a consultant with EFD. And as and when the report comes, it's going to be very useful, because essentially the one sun, one world, one grid is a battery system. It talks about using time as a battery, and it talks about time zones that can supply electricity to the other areas who need it. So that way it's very critical. I just didn't cover it because I thought let the consultant's report come through, and then it will have more convincing power. But this is a very good idea, and I appreciate ISA started it.
Thank you, sir. I think I'll come to other questions, and so to Mr. Kim Jun-dong, I have some questions for you. One is, India and Korea, we have talked about that have large share of electricity from thermal power plants. If we want to move away from the thermal power and reach want to reach to net zero carbon, phasing out of thermal power plants would be necessary. So what challenges are seen in terms of economic implications and employment opportunities? Please, over to Mr. Kim Jun-dong.
예, 좋은 질문 감사드립니다.
That was a good question. Thank you very much. So carbon phase out, we're talking about that. The government is focusing on carbon phase out as well. And the systems are aging. So we have the microdust issue as well. So when we talk about climate change, we have to do coal phase out as well. We have a consensus regarding that. So we have we have a plan to shut down 30 years and older coal plants. Japan is coming up with composite gas power plants to solve that issue regionally. And where there are no new power plants, the governments are using the plant land to promote a local economy. So government is actually having support for that locally. So the issue here is shutting out the old coal plants. We have a consensus for that, and that's an easy issue. But when the coal plants are quite new, recently agreed by the government, and we have plans to build new coal plants as well. So legally, we have some overlapping issues related to that when it comes to younger power plants. So there are many conflicts as well. And we have to have some kind of support for these new coal plants. So there are conflicts between the companies and the governments as well with that issue.
Thanks. I think another related issue is that when we have decided that we want to scale up capacity additions from solar and wind, the key elements of this strategy are that technology need to be innovate itself, dynamically, and cheap financing. These are the two very important elements. Apart from, it is assumed that green energy policy framework would be there by the government. So now India has one of the largest program on renewable energy. Korea has the technology and production and all such things. Would you like to opine how can we benefit from each other in this direction?
예, 이 부분에 대해서는 저는 좀
So when it comes to this issue, the question might be complex, but I have a simple answer. From company perspective, the company have to have money for that, have to have profit. But from my perspective, India and Korea, when it comes to wind and solar, each country's governments are supporting the renewable energies as well and has taken a big step to the market. So the important thing is whether the Korean or foreign companies might enter the market or not. In Korea, Chinese companies has already entered the Korean market for solar. And wind-wise, the Korean government is doing many things on offshore wind plants, but the wind in Korea is not that good, so we are moving offshore. And many global companies companies like GE have more than 12 or 14 megawatts, while as Korea is only doing 3 or 4.5 megawatts. So the market is quite large. But global competitiveness, when we think about global competitiveness in wind market, we have to think about whether India or Korean companies have the competitiveness to fight against the global companies. So we have to meet with each other. India and Korea, and we have to discuss what companies can go into the market, what top companies that have the strength can go into the market and compete with these global companies, which companies can make profits. So we have to have these kind of talks between the two countries.
Yeah. So
The companies cannot focus on these factors, so companies have to meet with other countries' companies as well and talk about the market, what the companies can do.
in fact, thanks. In fact, that point has come already, that you have said it during your speech also, that there has to be industry to industry level, or that kind of cooperation, the private level. So that will enhance the cooperation. So thank you very much for that. Maybe I have some more question. If you like, you can respond to that. You know, we all, you know, talking about net zero carbon by 2050, whatever. So what is the vision for share of solar and other RE technologies in the overall scenario of carbon reduction? India, we have been doing solar and wind, which provide cheaper power than fossil fuels. So we are okay financially on that. Republic of Korea has emphasized offshore wind. How do you see this playing out for Republic of Korea? Because in India, we perceive that the offshore wind is quite expensive at the moment. And will this be as price competitive as other sources of power? So, Mr. Kim, would you like to respond to this?
예, 그 조금 전에 말씀을 드렸습니다만 지금
As I said previously, well, between solar and wind, we had focused on solar, and we had less interest in wind. But now we have a special act on the wind generation that had just passed a National Assembly, so that more support can be provided for the wind energy. And I think we have most opportunity with the offshore wind, especially on the West Coast. On the West Coast, we are going to build large offshore wind farms, and we're going to have wind farms on an island called Jeju. Well, global advanced companies. Well, for offshore wind, it has to be very large and also quite expensive, large capacity. So it's difficult for the latecomers to get into the offshore wind markets. And but Korean government want to give opportunities to Korean for the offshore wind, so that the Korean companies would gain experience. So there is going to be policy support from the Korean government. So maybe between company level, maybe we could look if there are opportunities for the Indian companies to get into the Korean offshore wind markets.
Okay, thanks. Maybe because time is running out, I would like to seek indulgence of Gyanesh Chaudhary. You know, you are representing India. You are one of the key manufacturing companies in India. What we see in Republic of Korea, they have manufacturing capacities, and they are talking about improvement in efficiency of solar modules up to 25% and going beyond that. So do you see opportunities for the industry for cooperation on setting up manufacturing facilities, especially because India has now production-linked incentive schemes and there's incentives from the government of India for solar systems and components and availability of cheap financing? Ganesh ji.
Absolutely, Dr. Kumar. I think it was very encouraging to see the project Seamangum that was spoken about by Ms. Kim. I think there is a very good opportunity for India and South Korea to align towards building a common and collaborative ecosystem for manufacturing, considering that technology and finance generally would be constraint for Indian manufacturers, and scale and deployment of large manufacturing enterprises could be an opportunity for Korean manufacturers. We already have some good large manufacturers like LG Electronics, like Hanwha Solar and others, where we are already working with or in constant talks with on developing common ecosystems. I think it's a great opportunity to work together.
Thanks. I think one of the very important question which remains, and I would like to come back to Mr. Kim, is how do you see the evolution of hydrogen economy? How can India and Republic of Korea cooperate in the quest for green hydrogen in satisfying the energy requirement of future generations? Please, over to Mr. Kim.
예, 이 부분은
Well, about hydrogen economy, well, this is an area that we are very interested in. And hydro fuel cell vehicles are, for instance, like Hyundai motor has rivals such as Toyota when it comes to hydrogen cell automobiles. But when it comes to fuel cell vehicles, I believe that Korea, especially Hyundai Motor, is one of the true leaders. There was a news here today. 2040, Hyundai Motors is not going to be producing internal combustion engine. They're going to be only focusing on electricity and hydrogen vehicles. And the Korean government has also announced by 2030 that it's going to distribute about 100,000 hydrogen cell vehicles, and also hydrogen fuel charging stations. The government said it's will be set up all over the country. And related to hydrogen, the fuel cell generation facilities are being set up, not just here in Seoul, but also in other local cities. And the Ministry of Renewable-Energy of India, I think there's a Director General in that ministry for hydrogen energy, and under that there's also 3 divisions. And so related to hydrogen, there is a very strong drive and so India has a very strong source energy, and vehicles or generations. But India is still lagging behind other countries in these areas. And as Professor Jin had said, there has to be cooperation among the academia so as to come up with a scheme for the future for collaboration between the 2 countries.
Thanks. I would like to invite now Professor Ousam Jin for his last words.
So Korea and India, when it comes to collaboration, the most important factor, I think, is that we are going the same way to RE100 future. So we have the same vision, and so we are going the same way. And when it comes to, again, the collaboration, technology, investment, there are many factors. But the most important thing is that focusing on what we can do the best, what Korea can do the best, what India can do the best. We have to screen these technologies. We have to know what technologies, and when it goes over the academy to and other factors as well. So this is what I guess is the most important, and will build a way to future collaborations as well. Thank you very much.
Interesting webinar and discussion and inputs, feedback from all the panelists. So I would like to thank all the panelists for their indulgence, for their participation and coming out very frank opinion about the cooperation, how we can take it forward. So thanks a lot. I would like to hand over to Dr. Sonu Trivedi for further.
Thank you. Many, many thanks to Dr. Ashwini for moderating the session so well. And on behalf of the Embassy of India, I would like to formally thank all the speakers for sharing their insights and giving their inputs. Some very, very important points have come up during this entire session. I'm sure all would agree that we've had a consensus on how the global demand for clean energy has increased, and some of the areas have been identified on which both India and Republic of Korea can work together, priorities have also been identified, as Mr. Tripathy had focused on flow of capital. It should be based on equity and justice, and we have to identify appropriate technology. Global financial strategies have to be identified. So some of these issues have come up, and also we have discussed some of the challenges in the field of renewable energy and opportunities thereof. And I'm sure many more collaborations would come up, as Mr. Gyanesh Chaudhary had also messaged in the chat box. He's eager to have a collaboration with Seamangum, and I'm sure the representatives would take it up in a future in future. And I'm sure this interaction would be this interaction has been fruitful, and I'm sure the speakers would be in touch with each other, and I'm sure they would carry forward whatever we have discussed today. And let me thank once again all the speakers, Mr. Upendra, Mr. Gyanesh Chaudhary, Mr. Jun-dong, Professor Ousam Jin, Ms. Ji-un Kim, for sharing your insights, and most of all to all the participants who have joined us live here today. Hope to see you all tomorrow